video is brought to you in part by Book of the Month, and also from viewers like you. Thank you. Hi people, I'm spilling. Hi people, welcome to the video. Happy November, or should I say, happy bloomin' read-a-thon! If by any chance you missed the announcements, it is year 2 of the Bloomin' Read-A-Thon, which is a month-long relaxed readathon in November that I host with my bookish friend Kirsty. We had so much fun last year. There were hundreds of people on the STORYGRAPH. There's almost 1,000 people on the Instagram. I'm so excited that there's such a big mass of folks who were just excited and inspired to read. There will be 4 weekly reading vlogs coming after this video, but for now, we need to dive into what was consumed, read, and devoured in the month of October. Holy smokes, if you like cozy fantasies, if you like stories that are character heavy, low plot, low stakes, then please sit back, relax, and let's talk books. But speaking of books, real quick, let's hear it from today's sponsor, which is none other than... We're having a very clumsy day. Book of the Month. If by any chance you're unfamiliar with how popular and ever-growing Book of the Month is, I'm here to inform you that this monthly bookish service is the perfect subscription for readers like me, and like you, I assume, if you're watching this video. And if you're wondering why, it's because their team works night and day, sifting through hundreds of titles to give us a monthly list of new and early release books. I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times. My favorite part of Book of the Month is that it is risk-free, meaning you can push pause on any month for any reason without being charged or penalized. So any anxiety from the commitment of signing up washes away. For November, I selected We Are the Light by Matthew Quick. The premise drew me in immediately. It's about a man named Lucas who's completely convinced that his dead wife visits him every night, and then he forms an unlikely friendship with an ostracized teen who's camping in his backyard. It's under 300 pages, so the pressure seems low, but also the character connections seem strong. And the second book I chose is White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This is our author's debut novel, and it follows an indigenous woman who is forced to face her past when a mysterious bracelet containing her mother's spirit is unveiled. As some of you may know, I've asked a couple of times and I've had my eyes peeled for indigenous horror that's actually written by indigenous folk, so I'm very excited for this one. It was a no-brainer for me. So if you live in the US or Canada, they ship to Canada now, you can choose your own read or reads for November and get your first book from Book of the Month for $9.99 using the code Allison Pages. Thank you so much for sponsoring this video, Book of the Month. I fucking love Book of the Month. And now let's dive into the 16 books that I read this month, but first, some quick disclaimers. The first is a friendly reminder to not compare yourself to anyone, period, but especially booktubers. If you're reading, you're winning. That's the bottom line. Secondly is that liking and disliking books is not a personal attack. We all have different opinions, we all have different things we look for in books, and that's okay. And last but not least, make sure to check any and all content warnings if you have any sensitivities. Take care of yourself, there's no shame in that. The first book I read last month was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Janette McCurdy. I'm sure all of y'all have heard of this book already at this point, but if by any chance it skipped your radar, this is Janette McCurdy's memoir, and it covers her experience on the set of iCarly, her overall experience with child stardom as a whole, and also grappling all of this with her extremely abusive and controlling mother. However, despite its very one-dimensional title, I think it did a great job in showing the many dimensions of her mother as a human being. Something that bothered a lot of readers with this, but strengthened the book for me personally, was that each moment that McCurdy shares, she uses the perspective and voice of whatever age she was at. So for example, if she's telling you a story about when she was 6 years old, it's as if she tapped into 6-year-old Janette to tell that memory. I think it really added to the authentic and cathartic flavor. I just appreciated how honest McCurdy was in sharing her story. I was very impressed with it. I had my trepidations and reservations because it does have a lot of hype. There are a lot of dedicated reading vlogs to this book, but I feel like this one deserved the hype. So much so that I wanted to make my own reading vlog and join the bandwagon, but I liked it so much that I read it within 24 hours and didn't get any footage. I was completely lost in her story. I agree with some folks that the ending felt a little bit rushed. Around the midway point, it did speed up quite a lot. I still feel like she wrote one hell of a book. It's intimate, it's real, it's a chronically readable memoir. I recommend it if you're interested and if you think the subject matter wouldn't be damaging to you. Next, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. So if you're new here, earlier this summer I read Becky Chambers' Monk and the Robot duology, and they made it to the favorite shelf. Here they are. It even surpassed my previous favorite book, Lonely Castle in the Mirror. Yes, it is that good. So naturally I had to pick up anything and everything that Becky Chambers has ever written ever. This is the first book in Chambers' Wayfarer series. There are 4 in total, and it follows a quirky gang of characters who are traveling space and going on adventures. It still had that beautifully mundane flavor as The Monk and the Robot. However, I was a little disappointed because a lot of folks said that this one didn't have the same confusing, typical sci-fi experience that you get with this genre. And to be honest, a lot of it went over my head. There was a lot of terminology and world building that bogged me down just a little bit. But I really loved the characters in this one. It really felt like the TV show Firefly had a baby with the house in the Cerulean Sea. So if I kind of glossed over the moments that I wasn't fully understanding and just enjoyed what I liked, I did have a good time. And I'm really looking forward to what the other 3 have in store because this was comforting. This was was really a nice escape. And so I'm very grateful that there's a lot more time that I can spend with these people and other. Next, Skim by Mariko and Jillian Tamaki. Now I gave this one a scoop immediately after finishing This One Summer, which is one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. I thought it was so impressive. It's made by the same sibling duo, so I was completely certain that I would like this one, and unfortunately I left it pretty disappointed. It just didn't hit as hard for me, and it definitely had the potential to do so, but it just didn't have the time to flesh out all of the things that it was trying to introduce. It definitely needed to be significantly longer in my opinion. I think it had a pretty decent foundation, but we weren't able to explore anything really, especially with subject matter this serious: depression, teenagehood, an inappropriate relationship with a teacher. It feels wrong to just dip our toes in and leave. If we had the time to explore these themes and dissect these characters, this could have been so strong, but unfortunately it felt choppy and unfinished. I just needed so much more from this to be able to say that I liked it or be able to recommend it. In the end, the disappointment was just heightened because I know what these siblings are capable of doing. Hello, editing Ellie here. I got it twisted. They're cousins. They're not siblings. They're cousins. Just want to clarify that. So I didn't really like this one, but it wasn't that bad. It just could have slapped, you know? Next, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Oh my gosh, this is my genre, y'all. This is it right here. Cozy, slow, low stakes fantasy slash magical realism, but mostly fantasy, but cozy fantasy. I don't even know, whatever the flavor of this experience was, sprinkle it in all of my food, please. So this one follows an orc named Viv who's opening a coffee shop. That's it. That's the whole story. And each chapter we follow a different step in this process. Some of the biggest worries or stakes, I suppose, in this include, oh no, this regular has dietary restrictions. Huh, I wonder who can make the best chalk menu. I wonder where the nearest rat person is that can make tasty baked treats for our cafe. It was divine. It was so relaxing. I absolutely loved watching a stinky stable transform into this cozy cafe. You could smell the roasted beans and baked cardamom. It really took you there. With its sweet sapphic undertones and magical elements, this is truly the perfect book to read in the fall or winter time, but also anytime, to be honest. It was that good. And I know I already asked this, but I'm gonna shoot my shot again. If you know any book that sounds like this book, please let me know, because I need more cozy fantasy in my life. I need more low stakes books. I need more magic without the violence. I loved this so much. Please comment down below. Next, the Tea Dragon Society trilogy box set thing. Speaking of cozy fantasy, holy f***, the Tea Dragon trilogy. So good. All three, you have to read all three. I made that mistake. I only read the first one last year and I was like, man, I wish there was more. There is more. Read all three. Oh my gosh. The three books are The Tea Dragon Society, The Tea Dragon Festival, and The Tea Dragon Tapestry. This trilogy takes place in a magical world where little tiny dragons grow tea leaves on their bodies, and you love the dragons and you make the tea, and the cute little tea makes you relive memories that the dragons experienced, and it's the most wholesome. I have chills. I genuinely just got chills down my back. That's how good this series is to me. This series encapsulates my favorite theme that I try to keep with me at all times in my pocket. It's what the theme of all my videos are, at least that's what I'm trying to do, which is finding purpose in small simple pleasures, celebrating mundanity, making peace in the sea and uncertainty that is life, and the power of putting love and care into the things that you love and care about. This gentle journey forged by friendship comforted parts of me that I didn't realize were still hurting. It soothed parts of my soul that yearns for softness. This was genuinely one of the most beautiful things I've ever read. The color palette, the characters, the world, the slowness, all of it. I cannot recommend these three books to you enough. Definitely one of my top tier graphic novels of all time. Definitely one of my top tier books overall of all time. Definitely one of my favorite experiences of all time. I'm gonna be rereading this at least once a year. Like I can't say enough. Also, if anyone wants to be my sugar daddy and send me the little stuffed animals for this series, my DMs are open. Next, Autumn by Allie Smith. Okay, so for about a year or two, I've been seeing all of these season books at my bookstore, and every time I saw them, I would think, whatever these are about, if I were to dive into them, I would have to get all four, because that would just feel so incomplete to just have one on my shelf. However, I didn't know what they were about. I didn't know how Allie Smith wrote or anything, so I couldn't commit to all four. I felt like that would be foolish. So I really thought that I found a loophole in the system when I found Companion Piece at the bookshop, because I thought that I could read that one first and then get a taste of Allie Smith's writing, see if it's for me, and then commit to all four. However, I am the clown, and thankfully a lot of y'all let me know that I was clowning, because Companion Piece is a companion piece to all four season books. So I played myself and I had to then get all four season books so that I could do it correctly. And I read the first one. It starts with autumn. I'm going to be reading them in each season. So when it's winter, I'll read winter. When it's spring, I'll read spring, etc. So I'm doing it right. However, I'm going to scrub off my clown makeup because I loved this book. It's about an unlikely friendship between a young girl and her elderly neighbor. There are just so many gorgeous moments and beautifully written quotes quotes. I have so many dog ears in this book. I shared some of my favorite quotes on my Instagram, so I won't get too far into it, but just know that I adored this experience. I've been lucky enough to have 2 pretty solid friendships with older people, and so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think that Smith did a really good job in capturing this connection. I absolutely love reading about wise knowledge that's been on the earth for a long time, meeting a fresh, youthful perspective, and them intertwining to provide a better understanding of the world around you. If you're somebody that really demands a serious plot in your books, I wouldn't recommend this one, but if you just want to kick back and think a little bit, I think you would like this book. Also, it was very unexpectedly hilarious. I especially like the post office scenes where she's trying to get a new passport. It's almost a little bit reminiscent of Gilmore Girls, where the dialogue is so speedy and so witty that part of you thinks nobody talks like this, and the other part of you is like, but I wish they did. I cannot wait to see what the other seasons have in store. I hope we stick with these characters, but if not, I trust that Smith will write some good ones. Next! Okay, so I finally read The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, which is a retelling of the Iliad, which is the story of Achilles and Patroclus and the war that they go on and all that jazz. But what makes this one special is that Miller retold it with Achilles and Patroclus in love. I'm not gonna get too far into it because I already got into it a lot in my reading vlog of this one. This was one of Elias's favorites. I read this one and the next 2 for that video, and I'm just not ready to go down that rabbit hole again. A lot of people took it really personally. This is why I have my disclaimers. I didn't like this one, but that doesn't mean that I don't like you. I just personally don't really like retellings, and also I didn't like Achilles and therefore could not root for the relationship, which is the heart of this story. However, I really did appreciate the intent. I love that Madeline Miller has a bachelor's and master's in Latin and Greek mythology, and throughout her studies was like, why does everyone think Achilles and Patroclus were just friends? They were obviously in love. And so she retold this to right that wrong. I think that that is so cool, to use your powers to change history essentially, or to make history more correct. It's just that the execution did not wow me. The story didn't do anything for me, and I just didn't like it. It just wasn't my thing. That's fine. However, after this, I am going to transform my soft DNF to Cersei to a full-blown DNF, and I will be transferring both of my Madeline Miller books to a local bookshop because so many people like these books, and so I think that they belong in a home where people can appreciate them for all that they are, okay? You can like this book. I cannot like this book. The world continues turning. The second favorite that I read of Elias's was Summer Suns by Lee Mandello. This is a gothic queer horror that follows our protagonist Andrew after the death of his close friend Eddie. And so Andrew goes to live in Eddie's house, attend Eddie's school, and befriend Eddie's friends to learn more about the reason behind his death because he's not convinced that it was a suicide. I just think that this book kind of bit off more than it could chew. There were a lot of elements thrown in there that I didn't think were properly fleshed out. And at the end, the only thing I really liked about this book were the connections that Andrew made with Eddie's friends. I thought the car racing scenes were a little drawn out and excessive. I thought the twist was a bit cheap, and overall just didn't care about the connection and friendship that was meant to be the centerpiece of this story. I can definitely understand and appreciate that Mandello wanted us to also not know a lot about Andrew and Eddie because Andrew's perception of that friendship was changing, and in the end it's like, did he even know Eddie? That's fine, but I just wanted to care more. But that being said, the one element that I did like, these friendships, were the majority of the story, and so I could still like my time enough. I just think that this had a lot more potential, and I wish it saw to it. But in the end, it just felt a little bit scattered and that it wasn't a complete story. But I still thought it was okay. And the last book I read for Elias's favorites was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is about a young man who discovers a book in a library that includes his life in the story, which then leads him to opening a lot of doors, quite literally, and sends you on this never-ending story meets the labyrinth adventure of protecting stories and protecting worlds, and I don't even know. This book was so confusing. I loved it. Somehow it was so vague yet so complete. It's like 500 pages, and I ended it wishing there were 500 more, which almost never happens. There are so many quotes that I underlined and saved for later. Honestly wanted to reread it the second it was over because I just loved being in this space, which I think is a really rare thing to experience. It very much reminded me of Piranesi or The Ocean at the End of the Lane, where you just kind of accept that the world, much like our world, is too big to cover in one book, so you just kind of buckle in and enjoy the ride, see the sights, and love your time there. How in the world does a book manage to have such low stakes and high stakes at the same time? I savored every word of this book. It really took me away. It truly transported me. I was so impressed with it. It was so unlike most things that I read. So Erin Morgenstern, in my opinion, you deserve the hype. You deserve all the hype. So much so that I very recently purchased The Night Circus, despite not being a fan of the circus scene and hating this cover. I hate it, but I bought it because I was that blown away. So the deed is done. Also, every time they found a B symbol, I was thinking of my favorite Cards Against Humanity card.
You like jazz?
Next, Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Sun. This is a short and simple graphic novel that follows a little alien who is given a mission to travel to Earth and learn things about Earth. And seeing as he feels pretty othered amongst his fellow aliens, he feels really at home, being even more of an alien on our planet. Just tell me that this page doesn't encapsulate everything that we push on this channel. Well, I guess everybody tells me I'm too small and too too slow to make a difference in this world, but I'm making a difference in my own world, and I hope that is enough. And there's a snail. Come on. I have so many little tabs of my favorite pages and my favorite moments, and I still cannot wrap my head around how a book that is so easy to read, just so simple, like an Instagram comic, manages to be as philosophically profound as this. Like, I was just genuinely moved by a lot of these moments. It would just be a few words and a simple outline of a hedgehog or something, and it would leave me stopping, processing, and pondering. So if you're in the mood for a very, very low stakes, extremely speedy, cute and simple read, but still manages to tug at your heartstrings a little bit, I highly recommend this one. Next, Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark. So this was our Pocket Pages read. Pocket Pages is our book club, which is linked to the Patreon. It's one book a month if you'd like to join us. We read something new within the first 3 weeks of every month and then discuss in a temporary group chat Discord server in the last week of every month. So there's no way to miss out. Time zones cannot stop us. This book was our October read, and it's a novella about a group of people who are hunting KKK members slash monster creature demonic things. I thought it was damn good. I totally understand everyone's qualms. We already discussed this one. Thank you for another successful reading month. I love talking books with y'all, but I get the people who really wanted more from the characters, more from the setting, just more in general because it is a little bit short. I get that. I can definitely feel that too. I'm not typically an action girly, as you could see by all of the books that we read and liked this month. I like to slow down. I like to focus on the characters, but I kind of just took this one for what it was, and it played a graphic novel in my head. Like, I was storyboarding this entire experience. I could really see all of the creepy creatures that were in this one. So if anyone wants to adapt this, please do, because the Pocket Pages and I, we want to see it. So it was really visceral. The characters didn't have a lot of time to fully cook, but the themes were my favorite part. They were able to maintain a gentle yet strong simmer throughout. I just wasn't expecting a book as short as this to pack such a punch. Genuinely curious about the other things that Clark has written, so if you read anything else by this author, please let me know. Next, Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. Okay, in my nook and cranny of the internet, this book is so hyped. Everyone has read it this year, it seems to me. And so I was nervous to read it because of this hype, but let me tell you, here we are, facing another book that deserves the hype that it has. So this is a sapphic aquatic horror that follows two married women attempting to continue life as usual after one of them returns home from a deep sea expedition, but the other one is fully convinced that this person is not their wife. What unfolds is a psychological page turner that leaves you both confused and blown away, but the writing is just so beautiful. Oh my god, the writing was so beautiful. I was definitely craving more answers. At first I was a little disappointed with the ending. I thought that I needed so much more. I do feel like I have an itch that hasn't been scratched, but this was just so unlike anything that I've ever read that I wouldn't change anything about it. But just know that I underlined a lot, and I would read anything else that Armfield writes because I'm so impressed with her skills. I loved it. I'll stay itchy. It's fine. Next, We Spread by Ian Reid. Now, despite this one being very, very short, it was far from an easy read because it follows an elderly woman who's just living her life after the death of her long-term partner, until eventually the people around her feel as though she can't care for herself and cart her off to a very strange retirement old folks home of sorts. At first, things are nice and very refreshing for Penny, and you feel nice and refreshed, but things take a turn very quickly. You're really torn as a reader on whether you can rely on Penny or not, and I'm typically somebody who loves an unreliable narrator, but I just wanted Penny to know peace. I felt such guilt in not being able to trust her, and somehow this book managed to have me feeling both comforted and unsettled all at the same time. I know I've said this a lot, but I've just read a lot of beautiful books this month. This was just so gorgeously written. I loved so many moments. I underlined so many things. Ian Reid is the author who wrote I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and so I feel that if you liked that book, you'd like this one too, because it definitely has that Ian Reid flavor. I loved this. I loved it so much. It was sad and it was sweet, and it's very different from your typical thriller. Definitely smacked and reopened some wounds and fears that I have for dementia and growing older. It definitely will change how you look at an older person on the street. It's just not every day that you find a horror book that leaves you feeling more compassionate than when you started it. Yet again, another book where not all my questions were answered, but also a book where it makes sense that all my questions weren't answered. I was just so impressed. It was so unique. It was a fresh take on this genre. I couldn't possibly ask for it to change a thing. And last but not least, I read The Collective by Allison Galen. This book has such a wild premise to me. It starts off with a grieving mother who attends this award ceremony, but she begins screaming murderer at the person who is receiving the award. It turns out that she believes that the man who received this award is responsible for killing her daughter. After then being arrested, she's approached by a woman who hands her a business card, which leads her to this community of grieving mothers who all work together to kill the murderers of their children. What a concept, and I think it was handled so well. The writing immediately drove me in. I love it when stories leave you with little cliffhangers at the end of each chapter. It really allowed me to flow through this book with minimal effort. This one is obviously a little heavier than your typical thriller because it is dealing with themes of grief, but I feel like it also allowed for it to be more of a fuller reading experience. It wasn't cheap thrills, it was deep thrills. If you love to follow a flawed main character, read this book. If you want to feel how you felt the first time you watched Fight Club and you realized that the club was bigger than you could have ever imagined, read this book. And that's it. Those are the 16 books that I read in the month of October. It genuinely was one of the best reading months I've ever had. I thought I did a lot more spooky things, but I was really feeling the cute, comfy side of Halloween this year. And I have no regrets. Have you read any of these books? Which was your favorite? And my favorite question to ask is that after hearing what I like and dislike in books, do you have any of your favorites that you'd like to recommend to me? I'd love to hear it. I'd love to talk about books with y'all in the comments below. Another huge reminder that our read-a-thon is happening right now. You can join whenever you like. You can read whatever you like. Low stakes, baby. We're keeping the theme alive. This month-long read-a-thon is dedicated to tackling your TBR and reading alongside a community. We had so much fun last year and I'm already having a blast diving into the videos you guys are already making, the posts you guys are posting. So if you'd like more info, everything will be linked down below. Another huge thank you to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Friendly reminder, you can get your first book through them for $9.99 using the code AllisonPages. And of course, a never-ending, ever-expanding thank you to everyone on patreon.com who make it possible for me to upload as frequently as I do. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to check it out. We have a book club, bookmarks, downloadables, a Discord. We have a lot of fun. And I think that's it. I'm gonna go read for the read-a-thon. And as always, thank you for clicking, thank you for caring, and thank you for being nice. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!